Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the new Season 3 Collective Whisper podcast. I am your host, Simon Kay. Excuse my voice, guys. I've been a little sick over the last few weeks, so everything's been a bit delayed, but we're here now. That's the most important thing, and it's great to have you guys back for Season 3. We have some fabulous guests and some amazing content and stories to tell you, and we hope you enjoyed Season 2. We want to thank everybody who appeared on the show and all the stories we heard, which were amazing. So before we get our first guest of Season 3, I'd just like to say that we hope you please share and subscribe to the show and pass it on to all your friends. We hope to see you all during this next season. So let's get started. On to our first guest. So this week, I'm going to be talking to singer-songwriter Colin Devlin. Colin Devlin is a musician from Newry, Ireland. He is also the singer and songwriter of Ireland-based internationally acclaimed rock band The Devlins. The Devlins have released 4 albums to date with their international career spanning 3 decades. The cinematic atmosphere of the music has attracted many film directors and music supervisors over the years, and their songs have been used in numerous international film and TV projects, including the Batman Forever soundtrack, several HBO shows including 6 Feet Under, and the movie Closer, to name a few. The band, comprising of Colin Devlin, Peter Devlin, Mark Murphy and Guy Rickaby, have continued to tour extensively, which has cemented their recognition and standing as an international act, receiving positive reviews for both their records and their live shows, playing everywhere from small clubs and theatres to Madison's Gardens and most places in between. Their music continues to be discovered by new fans due to the enduring quality of the songs and production. 2013 saw the release of their first new material in some time with the positively received single Julian, which was recorded in Dublin and Montreal and had them collaborating again with producer Pierre Marchand. Blue Elan are excited to announce that a long-awaited new album is scheduled for the first half of 2023 with plans to tour in support of the release. Colin Devlin's first solo record, called Democracy of One, was released in late 2009 to positive reviews. Colin Devlin continued his signature sound on 2018's High Point. His second solo effort was produced by longtime producer and collaborator Pierre Marchand, who worked with Sarah McLachlan and Rufus Wainwright, amongst others, and recalls the work of classic mood masters such as David Bowie, Brian Eno, Peter Gabriel and David Sylvian. Colin Devlin is also the creative director at Blue Elan Records. Colin was nominated for Best Irish Male at the 2010 Meteor Music Awards and Best Music Video for The Heart Won't Be Denied at the IMTV Awards. That year, he also performed at the Sundance Film Festival in Park City, Utah. Welcome to the show, Colin Devlin. So, welcome to the show, Colin Devlin. How are you?
How are you, sir?
How is everything? You're in LA.
Yeah, actually in Pasadena, which is like, close to LA. So, yeah, things are good.
You've recently been back in Ireland on family vacations and stuff. And how is Ireland kind of to you these days now? Are you shocked by the changes there and the housing crisis and everything?
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's funny. It's tribunal after tribunal after tribunal, wasn't it, in Ireland? Yeah, the housing crisis. Jeez, it's desperate. I mean, God. I mean, look, talk about the good and the bad about Ireland all day long. But yeah, I mean, listen, it's desperate. But I'll tell you what. I mean, the housing crisis in LA is just insane, and we live in Pasadena, which is a bit further out, and it's lovely. I mean, it's out of control and just getting worse. And no matter what the politicians say or don't say, it's not a problem that's going to be easily solved.
No, I think what it is, the shame, for me looking from Spain over at Ireland, kind of, and when I do go back there, it's a shame that for such a privileged country at the moment, because we have a lot going for us in Ireland, and they're like, the economy's good, and people have pretty good jobs, and cost of living's pretty high. But it's a shame when you look at that and you see not only is there a homeless crisis, but there's like a homeless situation amongst families who are earning but still can't afford to live. It's quite shocking, isn't it?
It just makes no sense. It makes no sense. And you look at the amount of money that was wasted by, builders and property developers in the first recession, in 2008, and sort of, stemming from there. I mean, even, there was even a homeless problem during the Celtic Tiger. It's like, it can't be that hard to solve.
It's funny when we talk about music and, recessions and
economic crises and stuff. But it's funny because the next generation of songwriters are going to be writing about things that are affecting us now, like this kind of thing where people are being kicked out of their homes by the banks, and it's kind of a new type of revolution, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, there's definitely a sea change happening in Ireland for sure. But on the positive side of it, like I mean, I love going back. I mean, it's different. I mean, we live here now, and but I try and get back as often as I can to see see my dad, see the family, and so for us, like it's just for my kids. I have an 8-year old and a 5-year old, so it's great for them. It's very important that for me that they kind of feel that they're Irish and you so oh yeah, yeah, it's so important. I mean, listen, and you see it so much more clearly
Yeah, yeah. To have that heritage.
when you're not living there. How incredible the wealth of talent and creativity that we have there, and for all the negativity and all the bad things, there's just no country in the world like it.
For a small island, we have an overabundance of talent and that wealth of kind of culture and arts and everything. It's amazing because even now, I mean, there's so many different styles of music coming out of Ireland, but it's just amazing to see now for me what I think is the diversity. Because in the past you had your typical Irish man or woman kind of writing about things that affected them. But now you have people from Nigeria, from Kenya, from Senegal, from Italy, from everywhere that grew up as second generation Irish and are now writing about their history and their history before their parents came to Ireland. No?
That is it's totally amazing to see. I was actually I was listening to Susan O'Neill's new record this morning, which is really, really great. Which so I digress away from that, but yeah, listen, it is a very changed country, and it is amazing to see, and so much more cosmopolitan and international, and I think that's only a good thing, really. And it is a very vibrant city, but yeah, got to get the fucking homeless situation sorted out.
As any of the great songwriters, I suppose, when if the world was perfect, there wouldn't be great things to write about, or sad things, or tragic things to write about. So I think it's fuel for the art.
That's it.
Tragedy and misery and sadness and happiness are fuel for the arts. They make us write about things that maybe wouldn't come out so easily, and in the end, they inspire other people.
Yeah, look at punk, or look at like all that sort of New York punk scene. If it wasn't in a sort of in a sort of deep depression of sort of late 70s or whatever in New York, which was a scary place, and they were able to get all these cheap lofts and big spaces down in Soho or whatever. I don't think we'd have any of that music, or CBGBs, which is now John Varvatos.
Of course, I mean everything's born from something, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah. Listen, absolutely. Yeah.
So for you at the moment, then, are you pretty busy? Are you doing a lot of recording, or like what you can speak about? Are you currently kind of wrapped up in a lot of projects?
Yeah, well, we've signed a new record deal to make a new Devlins record, so I've written sort of all the songs for that. I think pretty much. So we're going to try and record that, hopefully in Dublin, in January or February. So really looking forward to doing that, and just like playing. I really miss playing with the lads, with Peter, my brother, and Mark Murphy, the guitar player, and Guy Rickabear, drummer. So I just really miss playing with the lads, and I really love playing live with them and recording with them. So that's just what I'm kind of looking forward to doing that next year. And the record label that we're signed to, it's called Blue Elan Records, and they're based in LA. And there's a really, really nice bunch of people. And I also kind of work with them in a sort of creative director capacity, sort of helping out with other bands, and just sort of, I guess, through my career, I've kind of seen both sides of the business in terms of like major labels, indie labels, you know, all sorts of stuff. So they kind of appreciate my perspective on things, and some artists need it more than others. Some artists don't need it at all. It's important to have your own vision.
Yeah, that's the thing now, isn't it? Because, you'll get a lot of independent artists who maybe look at record companies and say, is it worth being with a record company? Are they only there for marketing purposes? Can they further my career? If I put money into it myself, even a small amount, can I achieve the same results but have less influence from the record company? So I think it's quite a hard decision now, isn't it? Because maybe record companies don't offer as much as they used to artists.
Yeah, it is a really tough decision. I think it depends on the kind of artist you are. It's so easy. The you know the barrier to entry is so low in terms of making music. Anybody can make music. Literally, your cat can make music, and
Yeah.
you could release on Spotify, and it'd probably be okay. And so there's not a lot of really bad. I mean, look, it's all subjective. What's good, what's bad, whatever. But I think that my point is that there's a lot of stuff out there, and it's whatever, something like 60,000 songs get uploaded to Spotify per day or something like that. And so think about that for a second, and just let that sit for a second.
60,000.
So I think that what you need to do is just for me, I think it's just finding knowing sort of who your audience are, or I don't know. And then also the point about it is that it's harder sometimes. I think for great music sometimes can get lost. So the benefit of a record company, I think, an independent record label can be of benefit if you have a sort of career trajectory that's happening, that's starting to happen, and that you're driving it yourself, and then they're partnering with you to help you expand that in terms of spending money on, as you said, marketing, distribution to a certain extent. I mean, like for example, say on Spotify, when you watch Spotify and they've got the marquees, they call them at the top, it's like somebody's paying for those, and then that's maybe exposing people to new music, and there are benefits to it. But then also, record labels maybe don't suit some people because they just doesn't, So I think it all depends. And for me, I think like if you're an artist and you're doing your own thing and you're driving it and you feel you're building it yourself organically, then I think maybe a record company can be of benefit to you. You're not kind of beholding to them really. It's more a partnership.
Maybe in the initial stages, in the early days, you had record companies who kind of came in, took over the band, made a lot of important decisions. But now I think a lot of record companies will only approach bands when the numbers are high, when they see there's real potential there. They don't take so much of a gamble, but what they do is they say, okay, you've got to that level, but now to get to the bigger level, you might need help, and we can partner up with you.
Yeah, exactly. And then that makes sense. I mean, look, and then there's different worlds. The pop world is just a completely different world. I mean, I enjoy listening to a good pop song, but it's a different type of marketing, different type of thing, or like variants, like in hip hop and rap, and that's just a different world. And that again is a very different thing. It's so street. It's so it really is a completely different world as to how that music surfaces and is sold and is distributed, and so there are so many different ways I think to do it, but ultimately the music has to be great, and that has to resonate with people in some way and touch them and move them.
5 people can hear music and say that's really good, but then one important person or one person who maybe could put that music out there, whether it be a critic or a record company executive or somebody, that person is the one that maybe that's where the look comes in, because they might say that's brilliant, that's everything, but like you said, music is subjective, and they might say, nah, it's not what we're looking for, and it's not, it's been done before, and then that can kill everything. So it's a really hard thing, isn't it? No matter, because with friends and family, they all love your music. And I also believe, then I've kind of realized over the years, there's that personal bias. I always call it that,
Yeah,
where
of course.
you work so much with your own songs, you think they're good and you think they're great. And then one day maybe you have to kind of say, oh, maybe they're not as good as I thought they were.
Yeah, and that's a hard day, but that's okay too, And then you know what? Maybe they are great. You see, you just that's it.
Yeah,
You don't know.
you don't know.
Nobody knows.
Everybody
But
has
I
a
think
different view.
in music you have to have some kind of exceptional talent, whether it's the way that you program a drum machine, or whether it's the way that you sing, or the way that you play guitar, or the way that it has to be something exceptional in that, because it's like that thing of what you're saying is like, oh, my son or daughter, we all think they're great, they're brilliant, you should sign them to your record label, and so, and then, but like but then you just don't know. Look at Hosier's story. It was whatever Caroline Desmond went to. He was in school with Caroline's son or daughter, I think, and she went to saw him at the school concert. At the school concert, and said, "This guy's amazing." So
Yeah, and it's just you can be found.
yeah, and because great songs, can break through, and like that, "Take Me to
Of
Church."
course, and so sometimes it only takes one or two great songs to break an artist. It can be a curse in some ways because that song can be the only thing people want to hear, and they have to play that to death, and the other songs don't get the same attention. But in the same respect, that song can break them and put them somewhere where their other material can be seen.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you never know. I mean, like one of my close friends is a producer, Rob Kerwin, and Rob produced Hosier record. And but Rob
Okay,
was doing a lot of records. He was in Berlin and he was in Ireland. He did a lot of really great records, and this was just another record that he was doing. And he did it in the studio in Dublin, and it was done pretty quick. I think literally over like a couple of weekends. The EP. But Rob, had enough sense to when he listened to the basic to the demo of it, and he said, "This vocal is amazing. I'm not gonna even try and reproduce that." And he basically sort of beefed up and added, to the
yeah,
vibe of the demo that was there. So I think it's just like, the older I get, you just try to trust your instincts on what you feel is good, like, and that's all you can do. But whether they're not right or wrong, they're just your instincts. And like I've been doing quite a lot of like producing with with the label boss of Blue Land, Kirk Passage, who's an amazing guy, and we've kind of been co-producing a lot of records together recently, and it's fantastic just to be able to go in and just really be able to trust your instincts and hone in on that. And we just get, excuse me, we get everybody in live, we just get all musicians live, and we do it all off the floor. There's no tracking drums first, bass first. We'll just get the band and have the singer in the control room with with a SM7, Shure SM7 microphone, and just until we feel like the vibe is there, it's like, okay, this sounds good, let's just go with that. And if you kind of have the freedom to do that, and you just kind of are in tune with it, sometimes something special can happen if the artist is good enough.
you see, that's the thing, isn't it? As you said, it's a vibe, and that might be a point in their life or in the artist's life when it's the best time. So, for example, it could be a good time in their life when the music is flowing, or it could be a sad or tragic part of their life where the music is flowing in a different way, but you catch that in the studio, and maybe internally they could be a bit fucked up or out of place, but when the songs come out, you said there was a bit of magic there.
Yeah, and the more you kind of produce as well, it's kind of like it's capturing something that they don't even know is happening. It's like you're kind of just sort of guiding them really in a way, and sort of and being open to catching that. It's that whole thing of where so many songwriters say the songs are just moving through me, and I just caught the song going through me. Could have gone to somebody else. And you hear that a lot with songwriters. There's different ways to do it. Sometimes it's a hard slog, or like just so it's you like Leonard Cohen versus Bob Dylan.
Different way of doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whereas Leonard's obviously slaving over every word, and then Bob Dylan throws it off.
That's the thing, isn't it? Because for some songwriters, they can throw out a song really fast, and other songwriters take years to finish one song, and they're like, "It's a masterpiece, but I can't finish it." And it's true. I was talking
Yeah.
to I had Eleanor McAvoy in the podcast recently, and
I love Ellen. She's great. She's nice. Yeah,
yeah, a great
lovely person.
artist,
Yeah.
and she was talking about the fact that there's a lot of sometimes there's singers who aren't great songwriters, but then you have the opposite where there are songwriters who aren't great performers. So sometimes you have these different avenues people go down, and they discover, oh, well, I'm not the best performer, I'm not confident enough, or I don't have that exceptional talent for performing or being an entertainer. But then maybe they can write incredible songs. So we all have to find our own way, and sometimes that can take years. No,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you do. And then as you get older, you kind of you just have to keep in tune with it, like whatever that is, that you tuned into when you were 16, or and that's not easy, and but you have to make the time for it as well. If you can make the time, and to have that sort of quiet space where you allow that to happen, and sometimes for me, I have two kids, and so sometimes sometimes it's hard to get that time. So you may end up that time may end up for me being in the middle of the night, or it may be at 4 a.m. But you have to get out of bed because you have to finish the song, but then you've got to get up at 6 to bring the kids to
Yeah,
school.
life is
And
hard.
so, like, yeah, but listen, life is hard, life is great. But how lucky, in so many respects, really. It's amazing.
For me, I've always written kind of from a very individual point of view. But then my wife, now, when we met, she, didn't know she had a voice. And then she started singing with me a little. And then we kind of started recording stuff together. But then what happens is you're together, you're a couple. And it's like any these couples, whether it be Fleetwood Mac or anything, life comes along. And when if you have a family but there's no your wife or girlfriend's not in the band, you have your own kind of routine. But then once there's two people in the band and then they're in the family, it kind of can cut the music a little bit and you have to find other ways of doing it. And that's why life gets in the way, but you have to keep going.
That's it. Yeah, totally. And yeah. So how did you meet your wife? How did you end up in Alicante?
Well, we met actually in Ireland, but in 2009. So my wife is Polish, and we met in Ireland, and we both kind of had this idea for a long time, independently, of going to Spain. So we kind of said, well, let's do it, and we planned, and we're here.
Oh, fantastic.
We were in Madrid for 8 years, sorry, and then we're in Alicante 1 year. The people say to me, "Oh, do you prefer the life there?" And I say, it's I prefer the quality of life and the weather and all of these things. But the only thing that the music culture in Spain is not the same as Ireland. It's a very niche kind of market. And if you're in Madrid, there's a little more. There's even more in Barcelona. Alicante, there's a bit less. So you kind of have to work it from a different angle, because there's not so many gigs. You know yourself in LA. If you're in LA, there's lots of gigs. If you're in
Sure.
Galway or
Okay.
Dublin or Cork, there's lots of gigs happening. But like in Spain, that doesn't happen so much.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And then there's all the sort of traditional music in Spain as well. That's
It's a bubble.
yes. Yeah.
I say to people here, they say, "Do you know this artist?" And they say they're very famous in Spain. And I say, well, we have that in Ireland too. There are great groups in Ireland like the Stunning, Saw Doctors, who locally and nationally people love, but don't break it outside. It's hard to break outside the bubble, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. There's lot of countries like that. I mean, like Canada sometimes feel like that as well. There's like these huge bands. They're just huge in Canada. Or whatever. And so I think that's the same all over the world, really. But that's okay.
Let's go back a little bit. I like to go back and kind of talk about your influences and growing up with music and how it kind of came about for you. So your early life. So you're from Newry, no? So the thing is, early life in Newry for you and Peter. How did you guys kind of get into music, and was it a family thing or was it outside influence?
I mean, we always had music in the house, but my parents weren't musicians, no. But we were always just music obsessed, and then our older brother Boric, who now lives in Sydney, and with his wife, and they live in Sydney. He also had great taste in music and had a great record collection, and my sister as well, actually. So we were always, it was around that time when punk was just kind of starting to happen. So like we sometimes, we'd our mum would bring us to Belfast, and we'd go to Good Vibrations, to the punk record store in Terry Hooley's Good Vibrations in Belfast. When we're going, and you go in and be hilarious. So there's a lot of music around, and then but I took my first guitar lessons when I was 6, I think. But it was in a group of about 10 people, and it was a Christian brother was teaching us. And they gave us all the guitars, and we were all strumming in a row. And got so frustrated and disappointed, and I came home to my mum and I said, it's not for me. I love it, but I can't play it. I just can't play the guitar. And it wasn't until about sort of 2 years later, when I was kind of like playing the tennis racket in front of the mirror to the Boomtown Rats, that I realized I was left-handed, and he'd been teaching everybody right-handed. And that happens. I didn't know. So, but when I started playing, this was like, oh. So then, and then I'd just be writing songs, mowing the lawn or whatever. I thought everybody just did that. That's what you did. And then didn't really actually really start playing until I was about 15 or 16, playing guitar. Really didn't, because of that happened. And then when we moved to Dublin when I was 10 in 1980. So that was a big move, just to kind of, the Troubles were still in full swing, and my older sister and brother were kind of heading towards teenage years where they might be going to maybe going to pubs, or and at that point, bombs were going off in pubs, and just things like, so, and just the quality of life was very because of the Troubles. Obviously culture was took a major hit, and then 60 miles down the road in Dublin is just, it's a different story, to a large extent.
Was that something that your family kind of made that conscious move? Like, was it something your family, let's say your parents said, okay, we don't want to be in amongst this kind of unpredictable life where tragedy can strike at any moment, and let's go. Was it kind of a better
Yeah,
life for you guys then?
that's exactly what it was. It was the best move we ever made at that time. Yeah, no, it was, yeah, all those reasons. I mean, my dad was a vet. He was like the veterinary surgeon in Newry, in a practice of 2 or 3 vets. So he would be out, doing calls at 3 a.m. like calving cows in Crossmaglen, sniper at work, and supposed to be stopped by the police, like in the army, in the middle of the night, kind of stuff. So looking back on it, but it all becomes normalized. I mean, we would go to school, and pretty much every morning, we have to go through the checkpoint, so you're going to school, and there's an 18-year-old British soldier, pointing a gun in basically at your mother's head, asking her where she's going, where she's coming from every morning. And you think this is great, because you're like, oh, it's a big soldier, and 5 years of age. And so these things sort of become normal, but they're not normal. Anyway, but listen, we had a fantastic time, and we had a great childhood there, and we loved it, and it was brilliant. And we would go to Dublin a lot, and we were able to go to London a bit, and we had friends there, parents and friends. So but yeah, so we moved to Dublin with 10, and then Peter, he was a total mod. He was like mods Mayday, Quadrophenia all the way.
My brother was a big mod as well.
Yeah, was he fantastic? Loved it.
Oh my God. I always remember my brother was a good artist, and he used to have all the mods, he was like the Who, the Jam, the Style Council, Quadrophenia, but he would
Secret
have these
Affair, the whole lot,
murals on the bedroom wall. So I grew up with all of these like guys in parkas, scooters, and my brother had the scooters. He bought them in England and brought them home. It was crazy. Crazy.
Oh, right, yeah. And at what age? What age was your brother? Was it what age was he, like 18, 19?
Well, he was 5 years older than me. So let's say he was probably 18, 19, and I was maybe 13, 14. So, you're influenced by this. And I remember listening to the music and growing to love it and everything.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, me too. Amazing music. I mean, and then kind of all the sort of, like all the Tamil and Motown stuff in the Northern Soul, which was a big part of that. So that was all, and and like specials or
You had some of the Irish bands who kind of had that with the Blades, with that kind of mod feel. Yeah.
amazing band, amazing band. Yeah, yeah.
Nine Below Zero, all of these bands. Yeah.
Yeah, and Peter's band, he was even a great band, mod band, and they were called Instant Party, which was the B side of it.
Instant Party. Okay.
And they used to support the Blades, so I used to go and see them, like when I was 12, 13. And they used to support them in a place like the CIE Hall off of Collins Street.
Wow.
And it was like full of mods in the afternoon. It was just like hilarious. But like fantastic to be able to sort of experience that and see it. And they were really good, and they because there weren't too many really great Irish mod bands, and they were the
No.
whole they all kind of kind of grabbed onto them, so they were getting good audiences, and they were really good, and lots of lots of Rickenbacker windmills and that kind of stuff going on.
Would you say then that Peter is still a mod, or
Oh
he kind
yeah,
of
definitely. They're
that
all the
mod
same.
influenced him into the music?
They never changed. They're always the same. Like I have a good friend from school, and Jimmy Smith, an amazing guy. James, same thing. The mod, and he's still, he's still a mod, still in the Fred Perry,
Still a mod.
and
always the best clothes and everything.
the whole job, yeah. And then, I mean, I loved all that, but then I was like, the music that hit me first was all it was like Kraftwerk, and like all the new romantics of Japan, and like the early Human League stuff, and OMD, and I loved all of that. Kraftwerk, I was like just amazing. And then I really, and then I sort of leaned on from that. Then on the post punk stuff was really, but I love to like Prefab Sprite, Talk, just some of just the most amazing bands. And they were the ones that kind of really kind of resonated with me, and you kind of make your own. And I think that kind of I think informed a lot of my sort of songwriting when I started, because it all happened pretty quickly, really. And Peter, and then after that, Peter would play in other bands, and he was always very encouraging. He would let me come and play with them, and I would come and like play or play guitar or just and then I think um I just started to, I guess, just put the songs down that I was always hearing, in my head, and so I put them down, and then people seem to like like those, and you kind of feel like you've got something like this is what you're supposed to be doing, and that was that, yeah. And then I went to Trinity for a year, and during that year we kind of basically just made like an 8-song tape, gone into a studio called STS, as they say in Spinal Tap, don't look for it, it's not there anymore. And so in Temple Bar, which is an amazing studio, where U2 used to record there. It was a total secret weapon little studio upstairs, brilliant studio. Anyway, and then so that was that, and then we sent some tapes to England, and tumbleweeds, nothing, because it was all Happy Mondays or whatever was happening at the time. And then, but a couple of Americans got hold of the tapes, and then just everything kind of went to just broke open for us, and kind of joined the circus. That was it.
Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it, that how we look at the Cranberries, for example, as being that example of finding it hard to make it in your own country, and then somebody in America discovering you, and all of a sudden, then everybody's, oh, they're Irish, they're a great band, and all of this. But you guys had something similar, but maybe more low key, didn't you?
Yeah.
Obviously, you got a lot of college airplay, and then you started getting more sync work and TV work and stuff like that. But it was maybe a little slower build, was it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we did a lot of touring all over America. We toured, like, we did every club from the Sticky Carpet Club, to the theaters, to Red Rocks or Madison Square Gardens, or you name it. Like, we played every venue in America, every town, every college town. Like our first tour was like 18 months. Like, we didn't stop.
Yeah, that's a long tour.
We just all over America, North America, Canada. Second album, same thing, and it was amazing. Just to you live like 10 lives doing that stuff.
Of course. And do you believe that maybe it's different now, but do you believe that time that college radio was something that really helped bands a lot?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Yeah, it did. Yeah, because it was kind of where music was broken. Really, started college radio and then go on to.
They were your audience, really, in a lot of those towns.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of times, yeah, yeah, and it was incredible. I mean, it's hard to explain to people. Um, but like amazing, and like a lot of times a 3-piece. Like, we played like Madison Square Gardens as a 3-piece, which I was inflicting my guitar playing on 20,000 people a night.
Yeah, but see, I think what it is, you have a distinctive style of guitar playing, because it's kind of it's, how will I put it? It's not in your face. It's more subdued. But then there's moments when it comes out and it really shines. Like, so it's more like that vehicle for your voice. But then you have these lovely moments when you have these like guitar solos, and they're not guitar solos like big shredding solos or anything. But the thing is, you have this lovely style of playing that comes out, and it really fits with the backbeat and the bass and everything. And I suppose through later albums, like, for me as a Devlins fan listening,
Thank you.
some of the keyboards and the orchestration really added to that then.
Yeah, I think that's the importance of a good producer as well. It's really, really, really key. I think it's just that if you get the right person, if you trust them and you just kind of let them do their thing, and you kind of have to go with it. Well, you don't have to go with it, but if you've chosen the right person, you go with it. Yeah, like our first record that we started in Dublin, and then we did it the first half in Dublin, and then the second half at Daniel Lanois studio in New Orleans with Malcolm Byrne. Well, Daniel was around a lot, and he kind of helped mix it. as well. And then which is a fantastic experience, kind of, coming from, white boys from pasty white guys from,
Yeah.
you know
Bog tans.
yeah, exactly. And then yeah, the Pat Spillane look, what's happening? And
Yeah.
so that was kind of incredible, though, to be there, and I think that kind of gave us a really good kind of grounding in rhythm, and sort of to your point, all that, which is so different from, it's kind of, there's a deeper groove there.
It's a quite interesting thing. The Irish musician and the Irish poet or the Irish actor. Sometimes, countries kind of make fun of the brogue and all this kind of the way we are. But I think once we start kind of showing our skill or our art, it kind of leaves people a little mesmerized because they're like going, how does this simple Jackeen, Ladine, whatever you want to call them, come out with this amazing, profound, deep words and our deep passion as well? And like, you only have to look at how many scholars, saints, musicians from Ireland, we can really turn it on in a funny way that's like magic.
Yeah, it's true, and they are, and you said the right word. They're sometimes they're mesmerized if you do it
Yeah.
right.
Like, where's this coming from?
It's coming from a deeper place that is there in all of us, but you just, you have to access it. It's there because of our history, and it's in our DNA, and you can't, you know who can put a finger on it? You can't. I don't know. I mean, but no, but it's a very good point you're making, because I can see that you can turn it on, you see, when you want to.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. See, I wouldn't know, but maybe
Yeah.
you'd know. You know what I mean? We can only see it in others, maybe. We don't see it in ourselves.
Yeah, I don't know. For me personally, I just, you just try and access it. You do the best you can. Yeah, I don't know. You don't, and some people like it, some people don't. I don't know. I mean, you can't always want to not change things, but you're always striving to write better songs and do better things, and
Not write the same song because that's the thing I think for artists is they can write like version
yeah,
2.0 of a song and they're like, someone else might say, oh, but that first song was so good. It's brilliant. You have another version. And you're like, no, because even though it might sound different to you, it's too much like the other. And I want to take it somewhere else. So I think a lot of artists have songs stashed away that are probably amazing, but they're too similar for, like I remember once reading about Prince and he said, oh, I could write 500 songs, but only two of them are good. And whereas for some artists, 20 of them might be good, but it's all that subjective feeling. And if you're not happy with it as an artist, it might never see the light of day.
yeah. No, it's so true. It's so true, because if you, well, once you start kind of going down that road of trying to sort of, please the crowd, you're doomed as an artist. You're doomed, because I think if people really appreciate you or your art or your music, they'll go with it. If they you know what I mean, they'll go, it's okay, this is where this person's journey is taking them right now. Like Bowie's the ultimate example of that, of changing, almost every record, but for a reason, not just, like, it's because that's just artistically where he wanted to go at that time. It's kind of amazing. Yeah, I remember seeing Prince in the pod in Dublin after one of the shows, and they were like, he didn't come on until like 3 a.m. There's 100 people there, just phenomenal. And then Bono got up and sang The Cross. Forgot the words, of course. But as Bono does, he's fantastic. He just kind of rolls with it, just he just started to make it up second and third verse. In fairness to him, it was 3 a.m. and he'd probably been, probably had a few. Everyone was waiting for Prince to arrive for a long time.
He has that character. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
those are the magic moments, aren't they? I mean, those are and I think in those kind of smaller clubs as well, even Vicar Street. I mean, some of those clubs and everything. I remember I saw you guys a couple of times. I saw you in Vicar Street and I saw you in Cuba in Galway. You played there a few times.
Oh, right. Yeah, good man. Fantastic.
Yeah, I actually spoke to you and Peter in Cuba. I remember years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it was a long time ago. But I remember those gigs even you had in Cuba and Galway, and obviously Vicar Street were amazing gigs too. But those gigs as well in those small venues can be very magical. They're just like
yeah,
You just and there could be
fantastic.
100 or
Like,
500 people there, but sometimes the band just catches that vibe and the people roll with it. And it's like surfing music, it's kind of just you're there and you don't want it to end.
no, that's it, and that's when the gigs are great. It's like when when it's like it's a moment, and you all know it's a moment, and it'll never be captured again. It's just it is that moment and that's why people I think want to go back to see you again, or because they're moved. I mean, and if you're not creating that in a gig, you're sort of wasting your time. I think because you can learn all the chords and have all the sound down, and everything could be perfect. But unless something else happens, something extra happens, and that's where it's amazing. And you know, sometimes it can just be the quietest thing. It doesn't have to be. It's not like it has to be like a loud bang over the head. It can be the very simple quiet moment that is the best. Or
Well, that's the great thing about music, isn't it? Because you can go and see. I love all types. I love rock music. I'm a big Metallica fan, but I can experience that in its own right. But then I can, like it'd be weird. I'd be saying to people, they'd say, "Who do you like?" And I'd say, "Well, I love the Devlins and I love Metallica." And they go, "They're a bit different." And I'd say, "Yeah, but they are to you, but to me they're not because I see similar traits in the way the melody." Do you know what I mean?
yeah, totally.
And I think that's what when you like different artists, you like I'm a huge Waterboys fan for years, and then you kind of go Waterboys, Metallica, Devlins, but it's all in betweens, isn't it? Because there are things I can see in Mike Scott's compositional and his melody, and then I could see in your writing, or I could see in James Hetfield's. So there's things you grab onto, and it doesn't matter the style of music. It could be traditional, but you grab onto those, and that's where the beauty of like having an open mind and listening to everything is.
Yeah, and that's amazing to hear. It's so great to hear that, because that's ultimately what it is. Because like we're not boxed into these radio formats, of like we like this, we like this. That's just a construct of commercialism, because so when music started, I mean not music started when it started when you know popular music as we know it's like in the 50s or 60s, the radio stations were totally eclectic. Everyone's vinyl collections were just like what you say. It was just is like it's a mood. Like what mood am I? Like I'm in the mood for the Black album. I want to hear
Yeah,
that right now, or I want to hear something. It's
yeah,
totally
yeah,
moods.
yeah, yeah.
And same thing like those Waterboys records are amazing. This is the Sea. I think is still my favorite. I love all the later ones too.
The one that got me into the Waterboys was the Room to Rome album, which was kind of produced in Connemara and stuff, and that was the one I got into. And
Yeah, yeah,
but then, of course, you discovered This Is the Sea, and you go backwards. But for me, that album was kind of like, oh my god, they're doing like folk Irish rock, and then some are rock, and some are very traditional raggle taggle jib, and you're like, this is a crazy record because I love every song, and you kind of you know, like I remember buying that on cassette, and you put it in, and you hear like kind of this distant Irish shore, kind of mythical, and then you hear this folk rock song that's kind of like Levelers or that kind of style, and then you're like, wow, this record's going a lot of places.
yeah. I like Fisherman's Blues. Like that. Like
Yeah,
I will cry when you go away. It's a little song, I'll
yeah,
cry when you go away.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's also just so beautiful. Yeah, I remember. But then, like, it like band members and people, collaborating together. Like This Is the Sea. That record is it's so special, like, because Carl Wallinger is on it, and like all those like the keyboard sounds, and
Yeah,
that's all him. And
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, and his like World Party were amazing. I remember we went to his studio in London, which is in the middle of it's called Seaview Studios. Or it was, I don't know if it's still there, but it's called Seaview Studios, and it's in the middle of an industrial estate, which I thought was fantastic. Seaview Studios. And anyway,
See,
but just
you
so
won't
brilliant.
see nothing.
But anyway, so it was classic, yeah. Because I was like, oh great, can't we go to Seaview Studios? Where is it? It's like it was like like the Long Mile Road kind of vibe. And because we were talking about producing our second album actually, but but it just turned into like a Beatles session, where he just played Beatles songs all night, and he kind of said, I feel like I'm trapped in a Beatles cage. I can't get out. But an amazing guy, and like that's Goodbye Jumbo Records. Just like that was very influential, I think, on on us as well.
With the Waterboys over the years, they've had different musicians and different members coming and going. So it creates different sounds, doesn't it? Because some bands use, for example, the same musicians and session musicians to go back to them, and they might have different songs, but then there's a vein that runs through it. But with the Waterboys, I think the vein was Mike Scott's songwriting, and still is. But the musicians change, and he kind of falls into a niche at that moment, whether it's more traditional or it's and so I think there's bands. I always think there's bands from Ireland that were influential in their own way, and I would include the Devlins in that too, because
Yeah, yeah,
the thing about it is the sounds that you took from all that craft work and the orchestral maneuvers in the dark, OMD, whatever, that sound then you made into your own. So when you hear how Thin Lizzy did versions of rock, Irish rock, and other bands around the world were like, what's this? So I think there's been certain bands like the Cranberries, the Devlins, Thin Lizzy. Even though the Waterboys aren't Irish, we like to think of them as very Irish the way they.
yeah. That, like, and Fisherman's Blues, amazing record, and just yeah, it's a funny one because we had made 4 records, and then I just felt like a change, and you know made a couple of solo records, which I'm really proud of as well. And but you just follow artistically kind of where you want to go, and but I gotta say I'm really excited about making this new Devlin's record. I think it's going to be great, and I've written some really good songs for it.
With the new record and obviously the songs you've written for it, do you think that the influence of your solo career and obviously working with other artists, do you think that's has an effect on the new record too? And obviously, because I know Peter kind of did a lot of electronic music and he was working in different realms and remixes and stuff. So I'm sure all of that will have an effect on the new record and recording, won't it?
I kind of feel like I want it to be songwriting is pretty traditional, I think, but I want it to feel very modern. I don't know. I don't want it. I don't want to go down the road of like loops and all that kind of stuff. I think I just want it just to feel very organic because that's the way the songs were written, I think. So we'll just have to see how it turns out. But I think that's how I feel I want it to be. But that may change. And it's been a while since we've made one. So, and it's just also something that I think would be great to tour live but because it's been a long time since we made a record, so I think it's something that feels that is relevant to us and to me now, and in the hope that it is relevant to other people as well. I think
I suppose this year would be kind of like the 20-year anniversary, from your first EP.
I suppose so. Yeah, yeah, probably. So it's a good time. We should get
Yeah,
it going. Yeah, yeah.
that's a good that's a great landmark. That 20 years, no?
It is, yeah, yeah, fantastic. Yeah, so it's I am sort of generally really looking forward to that, and I really miss playing. I mean, I play some shows in LA, solo shows, which are great, but you really miss playing, and sometimes I play with people here as well, obviously. But it'll be good fun to kind of see to create something that feels that we're excited about and to want people to hear, and so I'm kind of really looking forward to that.
Can I ask you then, obviously, as the band, the Devlins, because you two guys were brothers, and then you had the other members. Was that something where the dynamics of the band and the personalities and the egos and everything that was always easy to do, or was it something that kind of felt like you were, even though the other guys were in the band, you were like the executive directors? How did you kind of manage all the personalities in the band?
Really, I mean, the first sort of for the first record and the second record, it was Peter and myself, and then Sean was our drummer. Sean's from Dublin, and Sean was actually the engineer when we went in to do our first session. Then I ended up getting our record deal with Capitol Records in LA. And we just loved Sean. And I mean, we literally we were going in and we were going to just use drum machines. And Sean was like, "Listen, guys, I'm a drummer if you want." And we're like, "Okay." So we were like, that's how we started playing with Sean. And Niall, Herbie Mack, and Herbie was our keyboard player, and who's from Cork, and who's just an amazing guy and very soulful, and was very in tune with me, in tune with my songwriting, and was always very positive, and just added a great vibe to what we were doing, and came up with some beautiful keyboard parts, and that really helped, and it sort of helped create the sound and what we were doing. So we kind of, the four of us were that's what we toured for a long time, and then when we kind of, the downtime kind of after our second record, for our second, third record, and then Sean had kind of moved on to other things, and Herbie was kind of starting to produce records and doing his own thing. And then we just kind of, we met Guy. I'd seen Guy play, or Guy Rickaby, our drummer. I'd seen Guy play with Van Morrison, and just thought he was amazing. And he's kind of he's from a jazz background, like he's a jazz drummer. So he has the Charlie Watts vibe, and he's just fantastic. So he rocks and rolls at the same time, and which is which is what you need. And then Mark Murphy, I known Mark since we were kids, and we've been friends, and he has an amazing sensibility, and again is very in tune with who his own vibe, and he's just so talented in terms of, and his guitar playing is amazing, and the sound that he gets, and he does a lot of like movie soundtracks and sound design and all that kind of stuff. So I think what he brings to it as well is fantastic. And also, so so say like when we're playing live and Mark would be playing stuff that maybe I'd played on a record, or I don't know, I never have to think about it. I don't mind what Mark plays, because I know it's going to be great and soulful. So which is, yeah, which you don't always have, actually, because there were a few times maybe where like we've got a couple of players maybe in LA, like session players maybe for tours, when like a guitar players, whatever, and they were fine, they're okay, but it's the great thing about the four of us together is that we don't even have to think. We're a band. So even the name of the band was the Devlins, but people just started calling us that because we didn't really have a name. So when we made a tape, they started calling us the Devlins, and that's really just kind of how it stuck. It wasn't like a big master plan.
Okay, yeah.
So there really are four people in the band, and it's, so we maybe we should change the name. I don't know, but it's like
No.
but that's the answer to the question, basically, and it's a good question. Like, you don't. So sorry, I didn't really answer your question. I don't think it ever felt like that for us. I don't, but it might have for the lads, but I don't think so, because we never made them feel like that. It's just the way that it was. I think Peter and myself have just always been a great team in terms of we have different strengths, and that when together are, and when they work well together, and we love making music and playing together, and we're good friends as well. So yeah, but it's like any relationship, there's ups and downs, and it's not easy.
Of course, as people get older, they change and things change and situations change. So, but I think in any group like that, there's a backbone of the group. The great thing, I suppose, about it is that the nucleus of the group is probably you and Peter, because you have been together all your lives. It's like I always remember that famous question Donna Ayer asked the Coors: "How did you guys meet?"
Exactly. We used to get that a lot.
So someone could ask you guys that question too.
Yeah. But it's funny. Now like myself and Mark will chat a lot about songs and back and forth on that. So it's very there's everything kind of shifts and changes, and but yeah, listen, yeah, we used to get a lot of that. Yeah, how did you guys meet?
How would you guys meet? Yeah, it's a good question for the Devlins, but like considering there's two other members, there is a different answer. But for the Coors, that's kind of it was the most under investigated question ever. Like, she really
exactly. Yeah, well, Sean Devlin, our original drummer Sean, was older than us, and he was older than us, and we were like 10 years older than us, and so sometimes we play as a three-piece or whatever, and then you get sometimes you've been in America and you go, oh, you guys are awesome, it's so great to have your dad playing drums, we used to get a lot.
Oh my God.
Oh, fantastic. Poor guy Sean would be like, oh, here we go again.
Poor guy.
And so it's like, they'd be like, oh
my God, that's crazy. Yeah.
Anyway.
And then, he's like, look, he's in the crowd, he's in the band, and he's like going, oh my God, any chance of meeting any hot girls on this tour is gone now, because they're like, his dad is so cute, he's playing drums.
Yeah, totally. Where's the mother?
And
When
there's probably people going up to him asking, "Do you mind if we bring your two sons for a drink?
yeah, exactly. Are they 21? Oh my God.
Are they 21 yet?" So let's just talk a little about your songwriting, because
Yeah.
as you said there, you had, started kind of just when you were cutting the lawn or doing things, and before you even probably started playing an instrument. So over the years, then your songwriting, how, like, what's the process, and how has it changed?
I can't stop it. I can't turn it off. I can't turn it off. Like I had to get out of bed last night at whatever and go to the studio and try and finish a song because I'm sitting in bed like and I can't sleep. So I'm like, fuck. It's like okay, I gotta get up and go. Yeah. And I still have to get up at 6 to bring the kids to school. So like I don't know. Like
Really?
you tell me. I don't know. Like basically, I just have to. I have to write songs. I
Like, is it a melody in your head, or is it more, it comes to you when you have an instrument in your hands?
No, it's just melodies. It's well, it's both. It's very rarely the words first. For me, it's more like melody first, or and then sort of the tone of the song or the mood of the song, and then maybe the sound of the words, the sound of what you're singing to whatever melody. Then I try and make things sound good. And a lot of times when it sounds good, it works right because it just works, and then it's okay sometimes when it doesn't make sense as well. Sometimes everyone's always trying to be a genius all the time, and sometimes I think it's okay just to be like, actually, I don't mean lazy songwriter. I mean just like I don't need to write another verse here because that verse works here, or do I need to change the chords, or do I need a bridge in this song, or and then sometimes I think you can fall into the trap of like as you get older where it becomes so much harder to lyrically make it make sense, or there just are no rules, like some songs you feel like need a proper story and a beginning and an end, and a mood and imagery, and then other songs you try and put all that into the song, but then the song sort of fights back and says, I don't need that, actually. I just need leave me alone.
Yeah. Some songs have this channel where they're running, and then other songs want to go in different directions. And I think even for songwriters, when people say, "What's that song about?" and they're like, and then, they're like, "Well, it depends," because can be about different things. And I know some artists kind of come out with the question for the interviews, "What's it about for you?" Because that's the beauty of music, isn't it? It doesn't matter what it means to one person, it's what it means to you or to another person. So, I always remember that famous interview where Dave Fanning was interviewing Lou Reed, and he said to him, "I get this impression from your song that this song, it means like this, and that you're trying to say this." And Lou Reed said, "No, I'm saying this or whatever. I'm not really sure, but I'm saying this." And Dave Fanning kind of goes, "Yeah, but I feel it." And he says, "I fucking wrote the song. I think I know what it means."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you can't argue with that, because
Uh,
sometimes there is a real meaning, but sometimes maybe even the artist is not sure, because it's a very profound thing or surreal. It's kind of, there's words there, but you're like, I'm not sure. Is it about that?
that's it. I mean, sometimes like look at that. So it's sort of those a lot of those great Van Morrison songs. It's like stream of consciousness, and he's just tapping into something, and he doesn't know himself. He's just tapping into it, and he's able to write it down and articulate it in a very fast way, or it's like like Matt Chamberlain, a drummer, friend of ours, and Matt played has played drums on some Devlins tracks and my two solo records, and he's like an amazing drummer. Yeah, great drummer, and he was doing a record. He was doing the record with Elton John playing drums. It was like a really stripped down record, and it's the one where the Robert Downey Jr. is in the video. Remember that one? It's like I'm not or whatever. I can't remember, but it's cool, great song. I see, really good record,
Yeah,
and
I think I do. Yeah.
probably like 10 years ago, maybe more. I remember him saying it's like no, he's like just come in and it's like there's no messing around. Like basically, what's it? Bernie Taupin faxes over or emails over, whatever he does, the lyrics, and if it's not working in like 20 minutes, half an hour, just ditches it. It's gone. Like those songs are written in a very short space of time. He has the lyrics in front of him, and if it connects with something, or if it doesn't, it's like binned. So these classic songs that everyone knows, in their being, were written in a very short space of time. I mean, it's all of the career into that and the talent and the thing, but it's just, so that's just going with your gut, I guess, and what's happening, and
Yeah, I think those songs come out. They just like they come out, and maybe I've heard other songwriters say, "Oh, well, like it's when it comes time to picking singles or what's a good song or what's a bad song, they have different ideas, and the record company might say, no, that's a good song, or a producer might say, no, no, that's the one you have to go with, because when you get so invested in them, there's that personal bias, like we said earlier, where you're like, I feel that's a strong contender for the first single. But then if you did a focus group or other people brought them in and listened, they're like, no, no, the fifth song is the one. And you're like, I don't see that.
That's it. That's it. And it's not because the record companies will normally go for the jingly
Yeah,
jangly one.
yeah,
It's like, like that's up tempo, right? That's that, like, because they send us the radio promoter, and the radio promoter goes, "This is going to fit in this format." So it's just like every time, and like invariably 9 times out of 10, that's not the song.
yeah.
I mean, look at like the song "Waiting."
That was just in my head because I was just thinking, I think for me,
There is no chorus to the song. Like, it doesn't have a chorus, but or even verses. It just has like, it's just this thing. But it's like in the focus group. Oh, we love that one. Why? I don't know. Just
but it has that feel. And I think for me, that was the first Devlin song that got me into Devlin, because it's like I wasn't with a lot of groups like that. I didn't come in. I wasn't at the door waiting for the band when they brought their first album out. I kind of found them.
yeah, of course, yeah.
And I heard Waiting, and it was like, I was like, wow, this is so simple, but it's so incredible. It's like kind of hearing a Bob Dylan song that's been produced by a kind of more mainstream artist. Like, it just has a different feel. But like you said, no chorus. The song just kind of travels through, and you just keep going the same way. But it has such a simple meaning. It's so simple. It's just brilliant.
That's it. It's just it's a, that's it. And so, but again, like, that's an example of like, that song needed a lot of editing in terms of like, well, what do I feel flows, in terms of like, of, and but to your point, like, and I think that, people say radio is less important than it used to be. So I don't know. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. I don't know. So I think in Ireland, radio is still very strong. It's still, it's still, so
The one thing about Waiting, always, I think what grabs you is those opening guitar chord progressions.
yeah,
It's just that progression just kind of goes back and over, and it grabs you. I mean, it just grabs you straight away. And then once that has you, then the words come in. It's kind of like, I don't want to compare it to this song, but it's kind of like America, sorry, Horse with No Name,
yeah,
where it has just the two chords, and it just goes going back through the thing. Then. It's like that type of song where you feel it, you hear it, and it just
yeah,
keeps you there, and you're not
yeah.
even waiting for a change.
No, and funny enough, Jerry Beckley from America. Jerry signed to Blue Land, to the record label. He's a lovely guy, an amazing guy, so cool. Like, they still tour. I've seen them play a couple of times.
Wow.
It's amazing because there's these songs they just play themselves.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're
Like, they're
crazy.
so good. They just, like, I mean, the band's always amazing, but they go from one song to another, and you go, oh, I remember that. I remember that. I remember that song. And you think, like, then, and they just, their career just, like, they just took off on a trajectory, and they never stopped. And all their records were produced by George Martin.
Oh wow, I didn't know that actually.
Like, literally, he didn't produce that much of the Beatles, but after the, I mean, he was always doing stuff, but he produced those records.
Wow, different sound.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it? I mean, to think about that, which became the kind of sound of America.
Yeah, it's that melting pot, isn't it? Because it's like someone tastes a good burrito and they're like, there's something else in here, and they don't know what it is. But like with America, maybe that George Martin influence was there, but you couldn't tell straight away listening to it.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, his son, Matt Beckley. Matt's a producer in LA, and a really nice guy. And we were talking to him about, his dad and the songwriting, and like, it goes, with Dewey is the guy in America. There was three of them. There's two of them now, really, that they've been the writers, and they write, and about all these songs. And I said, like, so do they work together or separate? He goes, oh no, it's usually it's usually separate, usually. And I said, so what? He goes, yeah, but they just split everything. It's like, the way he explained it to me is like kind of like some days you buy lunch and some days I'll buy lunch. And, basically, which is a great philosophy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like you wrote that. Okay,
yeah.
brilliant. You wrote Horse with No Name. Like, here's Ventura Highway. What about that one? Yeah, that's great. And we just split everything.
We're there for each other. Yeah,
So it's like,
yeah, yeah, and always, it's funny, isn't it? How those kind of things happen between bands. They have that kind of feeling, but it works for them, and it's how other people perceive it. Oh, how do they split things and everything? But I mean, they had such a great catalog of songs, and I think I always feel like they influenced so many other songs. And it's funny because for years, I'd been teaching guitar, and I'd sit down with kids, and you'd say to them, okay, so they'd say, what's an easy song? And you'd say, Drunken Sailor, here's the Drunken Sailor. And a song I don't like, but the two chords back and over.
it's like waiting to go spin over. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you'd be in the middle of it and you'd say, have you ever heard Horse with No Name? So you'd go, do you know what has the same chords? Horse with No Name. And they're like, who's that?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then you put it on and they're like, oh, that's quite cool, you know? So it's funny how even lullabies and medleys and sailor songs sometimes get into the mainstream of other songs. But it's those chord progressions we hear that keep bringing us back for more, isn't it?
yeah. Definitely, definitely. That's it is very true.
It's like Goithe, what's his name? Remember he had dum dum the Oompa Loompa music. Dun 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 dun.
Great song. Oh my God. Somebody used to know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's a great melody, and it hooks you, it grabs you, and then you're
great
kind of
production
going
too.
Oompa Loompa dun dun dun. You're like, "Oh, is that the Oompa
Yeah,
Loompa song?" So
yeah,
melody is
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
It's the way the artist puts it out that you go, okay, okay, that's clever.
Yeah, it's true actually. Nursery rhymes. David Bowie was always a great man for that. So, like like sort of keeping it simple. But yeah, yeah,
But even with David Bowie and the man who sold the world, that bass line dun 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 dun, so easy, but it
yeah,
makes the
it's true,
song.
isn't it? Yeah, just amazing. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Is it the new movie, the Moon Age Daydream one? I'm looking forward to seeing that when it comes out.
That's going to be interesting. Can I ask you then, just going back to the Devlins a little bit, when your music started kind of getting in, TV shows and obviously on the Batman Forever soundtrack, was that something that like overnight changed things dramatically?
No, because I think we were just kind of in the middle of touring a lot, and then we just started. I think the music just seemed to fit really well for this stuff because we got a lot of like we did like it was a lot of TV shows, a lot of movies, a lot of requests coming in. Like I think I guess it just seemed to work really well against picture. Maybe the words and the melody, just sort of like what you were saying, just about the vibe. So and also it's quite spacious. I think just and I don't write a lot of words a lot of the time. It's just more. I think maybe
A mood. It's like more like a mood, nearly.
there's an emotion there that maybe kind of like works. It's not something that I not conscious to me. Like a mood. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And mood is so funny. Like mood is so key. Like I'll tell you a funny story. Whenever we were doing our first record Drift in New Orleans, and we were in Daniel Lanois' house, as I was saying earlier on, and Dan was living upstairs, so we were all set up downstairs in the huge living room and big old desk, big Neve desk and all the gear and with instruments everywhere, just amazing, magical kind of time. And we were working on a track called "Alone in the Dark" from our first record, Drift, and which is all about just a mood. But sometimes I'd meet Dan in his garden, like during the day at lunchtime or whatever, and he'd hear into the song all day. So he'd know he'd already made a decision, and
Upstairs.
Malcolm was producing it. But said Dan would come downstairs. Oh, what are you do? What are you working on? Say, listen. Oh, okay, good. But I used to meet him in the garden. I was like, "What do you think about this one, Dan?" He goes, "Yeah, I like this one. It's good. Yeah, but you've got this bridge. The Americans call it bridge. So you've got this like middle eighth bridge section there, and I'd written this beautiful, big, flowery, romantic. Oh, gonna break everyone's heart bridge section."
Get rid of it.
Well, like with these like I don't know. I don't think I changed time. I don't think I changed time signature, but definitely like a lot of chords. Like wow, I'm really talented. I know all these chords. I'm gonna put them all in a bridge. It's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be like Purple Rain
It's going to be
again.
like, wow, this is going to blow people's mind. They're going to think I'm really like, I really know what I'm doing. And then he goes, yeah, and I'd worked on it for ages, slaved over the lyrics. And he goes, you got the big section in the middle there. Don't think you need that because the song is a mood and that breaks the mood.
Okay.
And he goes, if I was you,
Right.
I would just take it out and try it, just chop it out and try it without that. So maybe go back in and try that, and but just pretend it's your idea. Don't tell Malcolm that I said it, that I told you. Just go back and pretend it's your idea. So I went back into the room and listen, I thought that's a great idea. Why don't we just I know it's crazy, but let's just chop the whole bridge section down middle eight, and then the song just came to life because it was it, and it became, and there was no need for it. So it's back to what we were talking about earlier on. It's like sometimes you can't see the wood from the trees, where it's just like it doesn't need that.
The artist, as musicians, we like to challenge ourselves and not keep doing the same thing. And like you said, throw in new fancy chords there or new melodies. And maybe sometimes you oversaturate the song or you put too much in. And sometimes even I find if I was sitting down writing a song that you're like, is this two songs? Is that second part the second part of it? Or, is this like a trilogy song or whatever? They work together, but then someone else might say, you don't need that section or whatever. So that's the thing, I suppose. That's the producer's
No.
job is to get rid of the excess. They're like, no, that's good, but you don't need it.
Yeah, that's really good, but you don't need it. Exactly, yeah.
You don't need it.
And how do you write songs? Do you write them? Do you normally have melodies and what lyrics? What you do?
I'm terrible. I'm like this. I'm a procrastinator with songs because I used to write a lot. I write like every few weeks now. Kind of, I might kind of get ideas and I put them down. But the problem is, I have so many ideas and melodies and so many things. And then sometimes I'll say, okay, no, I have to do this song, so I have to finish it today or this weekend. But I think, yeah, I'm like, how will I put it? I don't know what kind of, I think I'm this kind of, maybe I have a little bit of imposter syndrome with songwriting because I'm kind of like an artist who wants to write music, but I don't necessarily want to put myself out there. So maybe it stops me doing more music, that kind of way. So I don't, I'm not tortured because I'm happy in my own skin, but at times I'm like saying to myself, oh, it's like, for example, I always say with this podcast, I did this podcast to kind of push the music along, but then it became its own entity, right? And then it kind of not,
Yeah,
it kind
yeah,
of stopped the music a little bit because of time and things to do. And then sometimes you're like, oh, I have to get back doing more music. So you just don't know the way where your life can take you. But so I can write songs really fast if
that's
I'm
it.
in that frame, like really fast. And I always, like you, have those ideas in my head and
That's
stuff. But
brilliant.
then I find when I'm writing some stuff, I'm kind of like, okay, that's maybe like something else I've done, and I'll put it aside. So I don't know. I can't really answer that question. What kind of songwriter am I? I don't know.
Yeah, that's okay too. But it can get harder as you get older because you kind of like because you can default to something easily.
Yeah, of course. And not knowing your style, maybe you have like, it's great listening to all different types of music, but sometimes it's a curse when you're writing songs because you're kind of like, oh, I like rock music. Well, I write rock songs, but then I like folk music. And then you're kind of not sure, is the song a folk song? Because, a lot of songs come from that acoustic kind of guitar or piano, maybe,
Yeah,
and they start out that way. But then you're not sure, will they turn into a bigger song or a
yeah,
very laid back song? And so the style even can be something different.
that's it. And the song kind of determines that, I think, and kind of tells you that towards the end. But and also being honest as well. It's hard to be honest. It's hard to be because and then sort of how honest do you want to be and what do you want to say, and is it uncomfortable or is it I think that's a thing too.
I remember the first song I ever wrote completely was like in 98 or something. I'd written bits and pieces and it kind of like what you said, like that tap, you can't turn it off because it was at a time when my sister, I had like a mentally handicapped sister and she died. She was like 20, she was 28. And one night I just wrote this song for her and
Hmm.
I kind of, it was like very emotional, and now it's a thing at family gatherings, people ask me to play, and I don't really like doing it all the time. But my sister's always like, you have to release that song, you have to put it out. But then I'm kind of going, I don't know, is it me? I don't know, is it my style? Maybe it's for somebody else, that kind of way. And but maybe it's just it's too personal to me.
Yes, yeah, that's it. That's hard. That's a, and I guess it was cathartic for you at the time. It's something
Oh, of
that
course,
you,
of course. I mean, that word cathartic, like as you said, there's times in your life when you go through stuff and you can write music and they can be
helps. Yeah,
amazing, but then maybe you're not comfortable with them being like out there. And it's something, I mean, for me, I think with that song, if I saw somebody else using it and I could do it, but then for me, because I know myself, there's been family gatherings and things like that where I've sang it and it's still very raw, that kind of way.
yeah. Well, I know. And did you ever demo it? Did you ever, or did you ever put a version of it down? Did you? Have you put it down?
I did.
Yeah,
I did kind of demos and stuff, yeah. But it's then something over the years I kind of like, oh, maybe should go in this mood. So it's like that's it's like the elephant in the room a little
yeah,
because
yeah.
for me it's like this song. I'm thinking it is a good song. I should do something with it, but I'm kind of like running around it rather than facing it. That kind of way.
Yeah, I know, and probably for you to hear someone else sing it would be
Different.
would be different and would be great.
Yeah, of course. And
Yeah,
and that's the thing. That's the thing. I think songs like that, you can write them from a place or you can write them from another thing. But it's how they're perceived or how they're delivered as well. I'm sure for you as well,
yeah.
you've written songs that have been very personal to you. And some songs maybe cut to the bone more, but then you learn to perform them without being emotional.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the thing, like you've put the emotion into the song at the time, and then, but if you're performing it, you want to do the song justice and just sing the song and not and just, and then also I think even in the studio, like when you've written the song and you've kind of gone through that emotion, sometimes like if something happens on the fly and it's magic and it's not perfect, but that's what it is, then that's great. But then sometimes even like when you're recording the song in the studio, you don't need to put that, emotion into your vocal or the wobble in your voice, or because you're all, because it's already inherent in the lyric and the song and the chords and the melody, and it's already there. You've been through that, and then 'cause then so like you hear people singing a great song in a pub, and like, why do songs survive? Why do they survive hundreds of years?
Of course,
Because they
yeah, of
have
course.
something. It's usually it's not just like bubblegum sugar pop that it doesn't last in any, you listen to songs, whether it's even whatever, Raglan Road or
Exactly. I was just going to say Raglan Road. It's one of those for me.
Fields of Athenry. It's a dark song.
Yeah, the fields of Athenry. But I think Raglan Road in the Irish psyche, it's like all of my kids have had that as a lullaby. I've sang that song to them as a lullaby,
Yeah,
and it
fantastic.
works. It's amazing. I have an 8-month-old baby, and I'll
Oh, good
sing him
man.
like Baba Black
Congrats.
Sheep. I'll sing him, Wheels in the Bus, whatever. But then I'll kind of say, okay, I'll try Raglan Road, and he just loves it
Oh, that's great.
because
Loves
it
it.
has that melody and that structure, and it's just
Yeah.
so relaxing. And I mean, people in Ireland, it's amazing that song how deep it has become ingrained in our psyche. You know,
Yeah, that's it. And that kind of gets back to the point we are making earlier on about being Irish and sort of like the stuff that you like, even if it's quote unquote sort of pop music or rock music, or and you're Irish, it's still there. Like U2 being the ultimate example, where their music is not traditional music by any means, and they've never really gone down that route. They don't feel comfortable obviously going down that route because it didn't, I know, like the closest probably they got was with Clannad, in the song for Harry's Game, which is incredible. But in all of their songs, it's there, because it's there in just, it's just there. These incredible songs. And as much as they're influenced by American culture, say from the Joshua Tree or whatever, or European culture on Acton Bay, or whatever, it's still inherently Irish, because that's who they are, because it's just there, and they it you know. I remember when they were recording Acting Baby, that rented the house in Dalkey. We went, Joe O'Hurley, U2 sound guy. Joe brought us in to have a look. The lads were off for a holiday or taking a weekend or whatever. And I remember going in, and just it was just incredible to see, to like, wow, I'm actually in the room where U2 are recording. We were 1920, and imagine that, you're going in like on the rings there. I mean, it's such a vivid memory of like going downstairs in the basement, and Larry was doing it, recording. The drum setup was downstairs. I mean, there must have been like 50 snares on the wall. And Joe was just saying, "Yeah, we've been searching for a long time. to get the right snare sound, the right snare for this record, and then because actually we know, and it's an incredible snare sound. It's a very modern snare sound. It didn't sound like the snare sounds they had on Joshua Tree or Unforgettable Fire. It's and it's everything and nothing, if you know what I mean. It's incredible.
Yeah, no, and he has that style where it's minimalistic a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
He's not like, he doesn't do big technical fills like some drummers, but it's just laid back, and it's really good.
yeah, it's amazing, and then seeing like My Buddy Valentine record upstairs, and just like being in the space was kind of as a young sort of artist, like young musician just starting out, it was quite incredible, and then to kind of get to know them later on, as sort of friends or people, was amazing because they're just incredible people, really nice, like just.
I mean, I think what happens in that respect is, they have a persona that the public see, but then when you probably get to know them, you see them as musicians, as similar artists, and you see their struggles and the things they've gone through, and writing song. And like, it's like this conversation, songwriters, musicians, artists. It doesn't matter if you're successful, not successful, multimillionaires, poor man. It doesn't matter. When you sit down to talk about music, it's the same thing, isn't it? We're all in that same level.
Yeah. That's it, and exactly, that's it, and that's why it's so important. That's why it's so important. But but there's so much incredible music, being made, because I think there's less constraints on people in terms of, before, it was just, it was so structured in terms of, like, only a tiny percentage of bands got record deals because it was so expensive to make records, and then that was just a lottery ticket, that you haven't won the lottery, just meant you got a lottery, you were able to get a lottery ticket, and then the whole structure was just crazy, and when we had started to make our first record, it was kind of in that sort of golden age of, like, the sort of illegal downloading hadn't really happened yet, it was just starting to happen, and so basically people were, buying a piece of plastic for CD for whatever it was, $12.99 or $14.
The thing that's lost, and I know it's coming back now because CDs are being bought again and vinyl's being bought again, and I
Yeah,
know it's kind of seems like a little like
no,
an art
vinyl's
house
great, yeah.
movement a little bit, but because I think at this stage with Spotify, it's going to be hard to kill that giant. I think, me personally, I think it's something we need to do, because I think Spotify, like, I was even telling my daughter the other day, we were talking about playlists, and I said, when you listen to a playlist, there's music in there that some of those are not even real bands. They're just music created by Spotify, but if you look up the artists, they don't exist. So sometimes they're like fillers for these playlists, and what it means is Spotify doesn't actually have to pay those artists because there's no artist, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, to know it. Oh, God. Yeah,
So, and that goes on. I was looking into that a little bit. So the problem is that Spotify has become this monstrosity, and there's different streaming platforms have different rates, but in essence, the CD and the record, the vinyl records and the tapes, they allowed artists to make some money. Now it's much
it's
more
very hard.
difficult.
Yeah,
So it's good. It's good now that people are picking up CDs and vinyl again. And you remember that experience of, you get a tape even, and you open it and it's
oh,
like
listen,
4 leaves or 8 leaves, and you're like, wow, the artwork. And I remember looking, who did this? Who played on that track? Oh, he played on that track. There was so much
yeah, amazing.
information, and nowadays you have to go to all these different sources to find that.
Yeah, it's true. And oh, listen, I lived with on my Walkman was like my life. I mean, like, just my life. It went just into a different world. It was incredible. And yeah, it's great. But it's funny because vinyl is just really just, yeah, it's gone way beyond a fad now. It's amazing. It's so great to see. It's like every record now is gonna be, like,
And that's
you
good.
you kind of got to bring it out almost on vinyl now, and it's really good for, like, pre-orders as well, which is good for bands. That's the thing I think is a really kind of great thing. Where, yeah, and the other thing is just it's all the skipping on Spotify. Like, listen, it can be amazing. Like, there has benefits of it in terms of, like, just as a listener, not getting paid for them, obviously, but if you're the rights owner, if you own the rights to it, and if you own the rights to your records, and you own your publishing, you own all that, and you have a decent audience, all the streaming services put together, it's like it's cents and dollars and all, but it kind of it's they can be okay. It's just that when everything is owned by somebody else, and then but yeah, to your point, it's like it's much harder. Like
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course.
you need to wear like a lot of hats, like to like I produce records. I work with the record company. And so you have to. It's a but if that's your life, if you're a musician, if that's what you are, or it's like it's like yourself, like you're a musician at heart, but you find ways to you teach or you do podcasts and you find ways you do it. Yeah, and but it's all like it's still music related for you, which is fantastic. You know what I mean? That's hard, for anybody.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You do what you do to survive. Like the thing is, any musician who's been struggling, who's tried to make a career of it, they always will try and find ways in music to make a living, to survive. And, not everybody can become a successful band. Not everybody can. The thing is, some of those artists maybe could, but it's a long road. And sometimes when to give up, and, as you said, family, everything comes along, but I think if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. It'll happen. But it is down to a lot of hard work. But that thing you said there about lots of artists now having to juggle all these balls and wear different hats, it's a lot of work. I mean, there's so many things you have to do. Even for me doing this podcast, I have to do so many things just to get it out there and promote it and everything. And it's very similar to being a musician. You have to kind of say, okay, so making the music is fun, writing the song is fun, but now I have to do promotion, and I have to worry about vinyl, and I have so many things to do, that obviously the more successful you get, there's teams and things. But I mean, I think people wouldn't do it if it wasn't enjoyable. It's a slog, but people love it.
Yeah, exactly, and that's because it's yeah, it's self-expression. It's for better for worse. And I guess that's why there's so many solo artists, because they can do it all themselves at home. It's cost effective. That's probably why there's less bands.
Of course, of course. Now, I mean, it's much easier, but I suppose the other thing with that is there's more artists out there. It's really oversaturated. Like you said, the 60,000 uploads or like new songs every day. So it's very hard for artists to be original and to be unique. And of course, I feel nowadays there's a little, I don't want to say plagiarism, that's too strong a word, but I feel there's a like heavily influenced by other artists. And it's good. It's good and bad, because it's good that these new artists are discovering the older artists, but there comes a point, I suppose, where even if they're influenced by one song or sample something, but then you have to find your own feet, don't you? You have to say, okay, this is me now, because maybe that only buys you one hit single.
Yeah, there's a lot of pastiche, all right. But I think the really great people, like the really truly truly great people, will get through. I mean, you listen to listen to like a voice like Brandy Carlisle's, or like that song, like The Joke, like you hear that once and you're like, I want to hear that again. Like, who the fuck is this?
Yeah, yeah. There's some artists really get through.
Yeah, and you think, and then you're like, oh my God, that's just incredible. Everything is right. It's just it's like, beautiful. So I think it's, at the end of the day, no, again, it'll always be the same. Nobody knows anything. Nobody has a clue about anything.
No, no, no. We don't know what we don't know. That's kind of the thing. We don't know what's coming.
That's basically it. Yeah, and isn't that the beauty of it too? That like you might switch off tonight, and you might you could write the best song of your life.
You see, the thing for me, always, I'm always inspired when I talk to like artists and musicians and everything, even other people from all other walks of life, because it always gives you that little kind of dig that kind of goes, wow, when people talk about their career and everything. And then it gives you that little dig to kind of say, well, yeah, let's write a song. Or wow, it's just inspiration. It comes from all sort places. And I always think that when you see how other people have struggled and done their art and perfected their craft, it's a great thing to listen to. And I think for me, whether it's me interviewing you and talking to you and being inspired by stuff you've done and yet to do. But then, as me as the host, then the listener can be at home and say, "Oh yeah, I really enjoyed that interview, that person, and I loved it. I'm going to pick up the guitar and I'm going to write a song, or I'm going, So these are the. It's all inspiration.
Yeah, it is, and you know, all sort of economics aside and all that. If you write a song and it moves you and you like it and you feel good when you play it, it's already a success.
Of course, yeah, of course. I know people could say, "Oh, that's very, cliche and that thing. But it's true.
No, but
I
it's
agree with
true.
you. Yeah, it's true.
It's
If it
true.
gives you a feeling,
Yeah. Doesn't have to go to number one.
it doesn't even have to be released.
Maybe nobody has to hear it.
It has to be something that does something for you. Yeah,
It doesn't have to get out of the room. Yeah.
that's something I have to push myself on.
I think, but I do think it's good to get it out of your head at least.
Tell us kind of, with the new album coming out, maybe 2023, hopefully, are your plans to, release it and tour with it straight away? Or what's the kind of, have any ideas what that's going to happen?
Yeah, I just, I really want to tour with it, and I want to make something great. I'm not interested in making something average. What's the point? So I'm gonna try and, so we're just gonna maybe try and find, just exactly when we're gonna do it, and yeah, no, I'm so touring, definitely get it out there, and then just see what happens with it. But I really want to make something special, and then I write a lot of songs. Sometimes I write differently in my head for like a Devlins record or for myself. So there's, there could be another record following it after that. I don't know, or so. But I mean, it's almost you almost kind of think maybe you should just have like 2 6-song EPs, and like or two halves of a record, but they might because who has the time?
Yeah, well, long albums are I mean, they're a great thing, but like you said, we're all we've everything's become more disposable in the sense that it's like podcasts. Even people say, "Oh, I listen to half it now, half it again," and so on. And music maybe has become like this too. People want to listen to 1 or 2 songs and move on. Then, so it's hard to know.
Well, I think you could release 6 and then release another 6, sort of maybe like 6 months later, and then put them both on a vinyl 6 months after that, or the set when the second one comes out, put them both on vinyl, and that's the album. Or I don't know. There's different ways to do it, I suppose. But hopefully we'll be able to play and do shows, and that's the plan anyway. So everyone's good. We're kind of geared into we're at least in first gear anyway. We've definitely the clutch is down. We definitely put the first gear in, so it's definitely happening.
But that's exciting. And a question that I just thought of there, but for me, it's an interesting question. Is now that you guys haven't played together in a while, as the Devlins, the logistics of like doing a tour and everything, do you go back to the same road crew, the same people who like, guitar technicians, the same gear? Like, do you have stuff stored away somewhere that's all the Devlins gear, or is it is it like starting again nearly?
It's a bit of both, really. I think you just kind of suss out what feels right. What's. I mean, I think it's you want to have new creative people around you that are doing whatever. So it really that. But it's a very good question. So you just kind of go, okay, well, what do we do? Because it's been a long time.
And who's available?
Yeah, who's available, and scheduling and all that kind of stuff. But I guess you just kind of like figure that out as you go along. We did have we had all our we had all our gear stolen from a lockup in New York when we did a lot of touring because of the voltage differences. We used to have a just like basic setups like amps and guitars, not like a big thing, but we just in a lockup in New York we'd have like a really lovely AC30 that was there, Vox AC30, and then we had whatever I set up at home in Dublin. We were planning some shows, and then all our stuff got stolen. And weirdly, about 2 weeks later, I was on the flight from Dublin going to Gatwick on the plane, and then Daniel Lanois gets on the plane. He's sitting beside me. He goes, "Oh, where are you going?" He says, "I was on taking a break from you two. They're wrecking my head or whatever. They're in the middle of
I have enough.
whatever record it was. Yeah, I need a break from the lads for a week or two." I said, "Yeah, great. Where are you going?" He said, "I'm going to Jamaica." And he said, What are you doing?" Because he said to me, I said, "I'm actually going to Jamaica too." So we were both going to Jamaica on the flight from Gatwick.
Oh wow.
Plane was delayed, so we were stuck in Gatwick for about 8 hours, and so we just got stuck in, and we had great crack. And then we were sitting beside each other on the plane over to Jamaica, and it was fantastic. I think we went through almost every record produced, talked about it. Just the most amazing 10 hours, just having a crack.
Wow. That was like a really, really interesting journey.
It was just amazing. Yeah, talk about like Bob Dylan records and U2's records, and like just like how and working with Eno and working with just amazing.
Wow.
Somewhere, I was going to say somewhere in mid Atlantic, but that sounded really sad. But basically, anyway, somewhere in the middle of the journey, we got chatting about gear, and I told him that all my gear had been stolen, and so my XT30 had been stolen. And he goes, you know what? He goes, Vox did a reissue of 100 of them about, it was about 2 or 3 years before that. They reissued the AC30 and they made 100 hand wired ones in the UK. The rest were all made from China after that. But they made these 100 hand wired ones that were like the plaque in the back of the names, and they sent them to people like Brian May, The Edge, Jeff Beck, whatever, or people who were sort of like,
people who played them.
made Vox famous, and they'd given Daniel Lanois said they gave me 3, and they're at Real World. And he goes, I'm going to give one to you. And he did.
Wow.
And he said, do you want me to fly? I said, I'm going to make sure the tubes are changed and it's flight case for you. It's in Real World. He said, do you want me to send it to Dublin? I said, no, I'll go and pick it up in Real World, because I would have never seen Real World. It's Peter Cable's studio. And true to his word, I thought he'd forgotten, and he rang me about a month later and he goes, I'm really sorry, I hadn't forgotten about it. It's in my diary. Because I thought maybe we had a few wines and a few vinos on the flight. So maybe it was gone,
Yeah.
He says this to everybody.
He says this to
He's trying to
everybody.
get rid of this AC30. And it's a great line. But he called, he's listening, it's waiting for you, it's there, it's all ready to go. You want to go pick it up? And I did. And it's just beautiful. So,
Wow. And it's the same sound, everything.
Oh, better than mine. I mean, it was.
Wow.
I thought I had a good one, but it blew my old one away. So it was really generous, a really nice thing. Like he'd sampled one of our songs from that didn't make our first record. It's on Daniel on Lanois' record, the Beauty for Winona, and there's a track on that we had a track called Chain and Band, which never made the record, but had an amazing drum beat on it, and he sampled that, and it's on his record. So I think it was kind of maybe like a bit of a thank you for that as well.
Yeah, but a great story though as
Yeah.
well. Great story. How a plane trip can turn into a really nice gift.
Yeah, the one thing I forgot to mention, sorry, because we got sidetracked, was that when we were on our touring, we were touring in Montreal, and that's how I met Pierre Marchand, who produced Waiting, and then also my 2 solo records as well. And Pierre is based in Montreal, so that's what we ended up spending a lot of time there. Which is an amazing creative city. It's sort of art for art's sake as opposed to art for commerce. Amazing place. But Pierre was very sort of important in kind of creating that sound as well for that record, because amazing guy to work with, and we're still great pals that to this day. So there's a lot of people that you kind of meet along the way that are so important. And actually, on that first record in Drift, the engineer was a guy called Dave Bottrell, who had just spent 6 years in Real World working on the Us Peter Gabriel record. He nearly hadn't seen daylight for like 6 years. He came to New Orleans, and he had really long hair, and he came and shaved his head off, and here we go. And amazing engineer.
Dare I ask, or can I ask?
Yeah.
Do you have a producer for the next album? Like, do you have somebody in mind?
It's confusing, really. We don't really, but it's hard, to actually to try and get something, to be honest. But we'll figure that out pretty soon, I think.
It won't be self-produced, or you won't be getting Rick Rubin to executive produce it.
Yeah, like we could do it. I'll get myself to executive produce it. We could do that, but Simon, but I don't. It's like you can do that, but then it's like you're not maybe going to get that extra thing that someone else that you really respect is going to give you.
No, and the other viewpoint,
just somebody in the room. Like literally, if I said to you, "Son, will you produce the record?" If I said to you, "You're going to produce the record,"
yeah,
and you go, "Okay, all right, cool," and then it'd be more like, "Okay, it's like, well, I trust your judgment, so and you're not going to afraid to say no to, or say, actually, I'm not sure about this." And almost that's kind of like it's just that extra viewpoint in the room.
It's another opinion. Yeah, I think just when I mentioned Rick Rubin there, because in the past I've read a lot with Rick Rubin executive producing, and you hear some people have very bad opinions of it, and he just turn up, and some people said they couldn't work with him. But it's amazing, isn't it? Because when you become that kind of powerful of a producer, and you turn up, and everybody has done amazing work, and you feel like that's it, we have it, and somebody just floats into the room, or maybe makes a call and goes, no, you have to change all of this, and you have them as the executive producer. Maybe you're like, but maybe you're not really part of the team that's working here on the record. You're just coming in. You don't know what we've put into that.
Yeah, well, he's amazing, because you see, the thing about him is that what he does is, and his thing is that he kind of always seems to ask the artist, well, try and think of yourself as the listener. Like, do you really like what you're making? Like, I know that you put a lot of work into it, and I know that it sounds good. But do you want to listen to it?
I think with Rick Rubin, though, it depends on the style of music because, like with Johnny Cash and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
obviously with the rap records and it all worked very well. But when I read a lot of bands, rock bands like Slash, Velvet Revolver, talking about them, even I know he worked with Metallica and different bands. You don't always hear the best opinions coming from rock bands. So he is a genius and he is a master
Yeah.
of what he does, but maybe it doesn't come across in all styles. Maybe the bands are like, that's not what we want to do.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of really good podcasts out there with him talking about the records, and you get the impression that, listen, you never know with these people because, like, maybe it's like it just didn't work and whatever. But you got the impression that I get when I listen to him talk is that it's like, unless the artist goes all the way with what he wants, what he is telling them,
Yeah.
or what he feels that they need, he starts saying, well, they didn't do what I told them, not told them to do, what I suggested they did, or
They didn't commit.
they didn't commit to what, yeah. And they can say, well, like, this is what I want. And that's okay too. So, like, but everybody can't get it right all the time. But you look at the
No.
amount of times he has got it right. But I love that he comes in, he lies down on the couch and he just sits and listens to it. Well, I love that. I think that's brilliant.
He has the listener point of view.
Exactly. And it's like, do I like this? And that's like, when I'm producing stuff, that's just what I do. I just said, do I like this? Like, am I enjoying this? I'm not enjoying it. Let's make it something that feels like, let's just try something different. Like, something's just like, and then it might be like, I need to change this, even like the tempo, or I need to change, a different instrument or something, or um, that kind of makes it like, has something, that makes it in some way interesting.
And that's hard, actually.
Yeah, it is hard. Not easy.
When you're a musician and then you step into producer shoes and you're coming from a musician's point of view, so you're like, there's something different that you want to hear. But for the artist, obviously some artists can have heavily invested, and like I said, with that personal bias once again, where they're like, no, I think it should be like this. But I think you have to really sit back as an artist and trust the producer.
I think, Simon, if you've chosen correctly, or if you've chosen somebody that you is sort of, in step with whatever you want to do at that time, like, again, sorry, referencing Bowie one more time just because it's so amazing, but
Yeah.
like, you talk to like a lot of the producers that he worked with, where there's like Nile Rodgers, or or even the musicians for records, it'd be like, well, he didn't tell me what to do, because he'd chosen them for a reason, for what they do, and he just let them do it. Like on that, like on Black Star, like, you know, he listened, like Lazarus, just like, was a beautiful track, it's just there, exactly right, and it's just like, and they're just like the jazz, and they're like an out there jazz trio playing in the basement, and who were so avant garde, and he just he saw them, spotted them, and like, would they be interested in playing on my record, kind of thing, and then they just did their thing. So, and he knows instruction, so it's like he knew, his genius was that, knowing what he wanted and being able to execute it correctly.
There's that influence, isn't it? I mean, because that's the great thing. I think it's like with Daniel Lanois, and if you can find a producer, obviously, if a producer's worked with artists and he has a great name, and he fits your sound and he fits that mold, I think it's going to be great. And there will be teething moments and things you have to change, and there's so many parts to being a band or being a successful band anyway, I suppose. But then a big part is the producer, because you have to let them into your world. You have to let them listen to the songs. And as you said there, throw out that middle eight, shorten the song, lengthen the song, whatever it takes. And you just have to be open to that and kind of believe that they know what they're talking about, because you have that trust already.
But lastly, then sometimes a really great producer will just know just to get out of the way, and nothing needs to be changed. And that also is a really great producer. Someone says,
Yeah,
actually, I'm not going to, just nothing needs to be changed there. Or the demo sounds great. Let's just work on the demo, like what I said with Rob Gervin with Hosier,
just do it. Yeah, it's already there.
let's just make this sound great,
Yeah, exactly.
And so, listen, who the fuck knows?
I'm going to let you go now, but you're going to do a song first. So all I want to say is, it's been brilliant having you on the show. I've been looking forward to having you on the show for a long time. Some great insights into your world of music and the world kind of you move around in. And it's lovely to hear some of the backstories about, the Devlins and the albums and the songs and everything. So I want to wish you the best of luck in the future. And we'll be eagerly anticipating, the album. And even my daughter said to me the other day, she said, "Oh, who are you interviewing tonight, Dad?" And I said, "Colin Devlin." She went, "Oh, Colin Devlin, he's famous." And I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "He is famous, yeah." And she was like, "Because see, my kids hear all this music in my car, and they've heard it all these years, and they can be listening to Metallica, Megadeth, the Devlins, Enya, everything. We have everything on it, and
Yeah,
they just
fantastic.
the great thing is it's been like this introduction to music for them. They see the name the Devlins and they see consent and they see waiting and this and it's part of their childhood now. So it's I always say to my wife, it's going to be a wonderful thing in the future when my daughter or
Yeah,
son is in a club and a song comes on and she goes, "Oh my God, this is one of my favorite songs." And what she really means, I've listened to it all those years in the car. And I think the Devlins are going to be part of that.
yeah. Isn't that fantastic?
Of course.
Well, it's great to have a new generation, Simon, isn't it? Get them started young. And listen, thanks a million. It's been a fantastic chat and a real pleasure. So
Really nice.
thank you.
And what song are you going to play for us?
Well, I thought because I was thinking about it this morning, I think because of the current state of the world, I think I'll do a song called Heaven's Wall.
Can you tell us a little bit about Heaven's Wall? I mean, was it something that came easily or?
Yeah, I wrote this one pretty quick. I think just wrote it in Dublin, pretty quick. I think it's on the Waiting album, and I think it's kind of like it's like the acoustic guitar player like on Mars or on the moon or something, and he's just observing, I think, and but as with most songs, really it's a love song. I think about longing and it's really on the record. It's a very like rock kind of track, and but when you play an acoustic guitar, it's sort of like a Springsteen song, And then about a few years after we'd recorded and written it, then I got all these emails one day saying, "Did you know that Bruce Springsteen is using Heaven's Wall as part of his walk-on music for his tour?" And I said, "No." So along with a list of maybe like 20 songs, we weren't the only song, but as people were coming into the thing or whatever. So, but the list was amazing of like mainly people like Emily Harris but sorry, to one example, I think Beth Orton was the only other
Oh wow!
sort of new arts. All the others were like and yeah, yeah. And then I think then he wrote a song called Heaven's Wall a few years later.
He was
So,
really influenced by it.
but I couldn't care less. It doesn't matter. I've got so much enjoyment for Bruce Springsteen's music. I don't give a fuck. But anyway,
American standards and yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story. He came backstage when we were playing at the Roxy in LA, and we were our first tour, and he came backstage, and he popped his head. It's a tiny little dress room, and he popped his head around the corner, and I said, "I'm looking at," and literally, it's like you're looking at me now. It's tiny, a tiny little room, and in LA, and of course, it was just us being Irish and Herbie from Cork, and how are you, Bruce? Come on in. So he comes in with his wife. We offer him a beer from the rider. He goes, "Oh no, guys, listen, it's so cool." He goes, "I'm not going to take your rider. It's okay. I can order a drink." So I guess the waitress comes in. So he sits down with the wife and we're chatting away. But you look at him, and he's like, "It's Bruce Springsteen. And he's in my dressing room, and he's the real because he's so famous. He's like Michael Jackson, or like he's like he's so famous.
It's surreal, kind of. You're like, wow.
It's surreal. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was so nice. And I told him how much I love like Tunnel of Love and what it meant to
Yeah.
me, chatting away. And then he bought an album at the merch stand. And he says, will you sign my album?
Wow, nice.
We're laughing. And he says, "You sure?" I signed to Bruce and signed the album. It's just so ridiculous, really, but so funny. Like we're just laughing with him about it. And
I'm sure you must have been on a high going on stage then.
well, it's just, I mean, imagine that.
That's life. I mean, and that's the wonderful moments of life in things we don't expect to happen, and then they do, and you're like, I can't believe that. But he's just a guy, isn't he? He's just a guy.
Yeah, well, he is, but he's also Bruce Springsteen, exactly. But just like the coolest guy, like he wouldn't take our beers. He didn't want to take the rider. You just come in to say, and he sat down.
That's kind of like, he's like, just call me Bruce. And you're like, no, yeah, but you're Bruce Springsteen. No, just call me Bruce.
Just got a Bruce. And Herbie's, how are you, Bruce? How's it going? Come in now. I just like
Yeah,
as
like
if he was his
he's
best pal, you know?
good friends with him for years. Wow, but
Yeah,
that's a great story, and I mean, I'm sure you have many of those stories. And look, we'll have you on the podcast again. You can tell us way more of those stories. I'm sure
thanks,
you could
Simon.
write a book on them.
Yeah, that's it. I probably should. All the best. Thanks a million. That was fantastic.
Thank you very much, Colin. It's been a pleasure to have you on. And best of luck with the album and everything to come. And we'll keep in touch. So Colin's going to play us out with the song Heaven's Wall.
Through the rise and fall, through the urban sprawl, you can have my sight, then we can see it all. In your neon dreams, you will know what it means outside of heaven's wall. From the tower blocks to the lakes and trees, when you know who you are, you will be on your knees. And when the real rain comes, then we can feel as one outside of heaven's wall. So come on, take my hand, I see it through it all. And when the stars come out, we can watch them fall. So come on, take my hand, we'll rise above it all. Then we can meet as planned outside of heaven's wall. From the mountain top, we'll see the fires glow. Where everything you are is everything you know. And then the fear will come, and we can feel as one outside of heaven's wall. So come on, take my hand, I'll see it through it all. And when the stars come out, we can watch them fall. So come on, take my hand, we'll rise above it all. Then we can meet as planned on top of heaven's wall. Heaven's wall. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow, really nice. That takes me back and takes me forward, takes me everywhere. And I was even in my head getting the harmonies in the background. You can't help but sing them.
You should do that.
Very nice, Colin. That was lovely. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you, Colin Devlin.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Colin Devlin. That was a fantastic song. One of my favourites, actually, Heaven's Wall. And we really enjoyed that and loved hearing your stories about your rock and roll career so far. And we eagerly await the new album. I know it's going to be fantastic, like all of the other Devlins albums and all of the other Colin Devlin albums. So that's going to be a good one. Let's put that in our book and wait for it. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed the first episode of Season 3, and thank you for being with us on the journey so far. And for the next few episodes, we have some great guests, some amazing content, so we hope you stay tuned, and we hope you're enjoying the shows. And as always, you can leave reviews, and please share the show, please subscribe, and please tell all your friends. We continue to try to give you great guests and entertain you. So, until the next time, my name is Simon Kay. This is the Collective Whisper Podcast. Take care of yourself and your family and the ones you love. Bye-bye.